The person my husband financially supported was abandoned by a scumbag and came to my shop with her 2 children to sponge off the air conditioning. I gave them a private room and drinks for free, but in the blink of an eye, her 2 sons ran into the kitchen, shrieking and peeing into the pots. I was immediately horrified, asked them to leave, and humbly offered all the customers on the scene 10 times the compensation. That night, Caleb was furious. Do you know that after you kicked them out, both children suffered from heat stroke? I threw the bill at him. Did you want her to pay hundreds of thousands for this? He softened his voice. Forget it, they were wrong first. I'll make them apologize. But when I woke up the next day, I found myself locked in a 50-degree sauna. She apologized tearfully. I'm sorry, Arya. I shouldn't have disrupted your store's business, but my children and I were really too hot. Caleb gently wiped away her tears. One thing is one thing. She has already apologized. You should also experience how they felt with heat stroke. When I woke up, I was already in the sauna. The heat rushed over me. The wooden planks were scalding hot, burning me into a start. My mind was blank. I struggled to get up, my palm pressed against the glass door. Outside the door, Caleb had a gloomy face. The face I once loved deeply, now only had indifference. Standing beside him was Serena, who was sobbing softly, her eyes as red as a rabbit's. I patted the door. Caleb, what are you doing? He didn't speak, just looked at me coldly. Serena cried even harder, pulling at Caleb's sleeve. Brother Caleb, don't do this. Arya is weak and can't take it. Caleb put his arm around her shoulders, his voice as cold as ice. You're just too kind. She kicked you and the children out, causing the 2 children to suffer from heat stroke. She should feel the same way. I laughed angrily. I kicked them out. Caleb, ask her what her precious sons did to the soup pots in my shop. Serena's body stiffened. She shrank into Caleb's arms and cried. I'm sorry, Arya. Children are just ignorant. I apologize to you for them. Caleb frowned, interrupting me impatiently. Enough, Serena has apologized. What else do you want? Isn't it normal for children to be a little naughty? Do you have to kick people out onto the street? Looking at his self-righteous appearance, my heart instantly clenched into a ball. He took out his phone, unlocked it, and opened an app. He pointed the camera at me. Today I'll let my friends see what the consequences are for your Miss Arya's temper. The phone screen was facing me, showing a WeChat group called Brothers United. Caleb's friends, those who once called me Arya, were all cheering. Brother Caleb is awesome. It's about time someone taught this woman a lesson. What's going on? Why is Arya in the sauna? Caleb typed quickly. It's nothing. This woman kicked Serena and her children out, causing the children to suffer from heat stroke, so I'm letting her experience it. The group instantly exploded. Holy shit, really? That's too vicious. I feel bad for Serena. It's not easy to raise 2 children alone. I bet 10,000 that Arya won't last 10 minutes. The betting is open. Betting on when Arya will cry and beg for mercy. Rows of words were like knives cutting into my heart. In the 50-degree heat, my sweat quickly soaked my clothes, sticking to my body, suffocating and hot. Breathing became increasingly difficult. Each inhale felt like sucking in red-hot coals. I weakly slid to the ground, leaning against the cold glass door, seeking a trace of comfort. Serena was still outside, feigning tears. Arya, just apologize to Brother Caleb. She wiped away non-existent tears, each word a sob of blood. When the 2 children had heat stroke, they were burning up, unconscious, unable to speak. The doctor said any later would have been dangerous. They were so pitiful. Every word she spoke precisely fueled Caleb's anger. As expected, Caleb was furious, glaring at me with bloodshot eyes. Arya, did you hear that? This is what you did. You're so malicious. Back then, when I asked you for your family's recipe to open a shop for Serena, you refused to give it to me. Now you can't even tolerate her children. I laughed, laughing until tears streamed down my face. That recipe was the only memento my grandmother left me, my most precious possession. I had once used that recipe to meticulously prepare an entire table of anniversary dinner, waiting for him until late at night. But he called me, his tone impatient. Serena has a cold. I'm at the hospital with her. Eat by yourself. Then I heard him personally dump that table of food into the trash. Now, for this woman, he was going to steam me to death here. I closed my eyes, my heart as dead as ashes, no longer wanting to look at him. My silence completely enraged him. Not talking? Fine, let's see how long you can last. He picked up a glass of water from the table next to him, the one he had been drinking from earlier. He walked to the sauna stones, and with a flick of his wrist, the entire glass of water was violently splashed onto the scalding hot sauna stones. With a loud sizzle, the scorching water vapor instantly exploded, filling the entire small space. The scalding steam was like countless needles, stabbing viciously into my exposed skin. Burning pain came from every limb and bone. I curled up in pain, unable to help but let out a painful groan. The intense pain in my body instantly woke me up. Through the hazy vapor in front of me, I stared intently at him. Caleb, when I get out of here, we're getting divorced. My voice was not loud, still trembling from the lack of oxygen and intense pain, but it was like a thunderclap on flat ground, clearly reaching his ears. The rage on Caleb's face froze. He looked at me in disbelief. What did you say? I said divorce. I said, one word at a time, using all my strength. Serena screamed, crying and wailing, as if she had suffered a great injustice. Arya, how can you say that? Brother Caleb just wanted you to experience how the children felt. He didn't mean it. She kept describing how the children were burning up unconscious, almost didn't make it, when they had heat stroke. The words get divorced were like a switch, igniting all of Caleb's madness. His face was livid, and he rushed to the sauna control panel in a few steps. All right, Arya, you've grown some guts, haven't you? He grabbed the temperature knob and turned it directly from 50 degrees to 60 degrees. I want to see how you survive without me. He pointed at me and roared at the camera. Don't you want a divorce? You leave with nothing. Let's see who wants you then. Every penny you spend is mine. The shop you run is also mine. Divorced, you're nothing. 60 degrees. I felt like I was thrown into a steamer. The air was as hot as a knife, and when I inhaled, my lungs felt like they were going to burn. The burning pain seared every inch of my skin. I huddled in the farthest corner, my vision blurring in waves. He was still feigning righteousness to the phone camera, his voice booming like a roar. Everyone see? I'm just teaching her a lesson. There's water and a doctor waiting outside. She won't die. I'm just letting her know what's what. He wanted to showcase his benevolence and my deserving punishment to everyone. Against my will, my mind flashed back to scenes from when we were in love. Once, I accidentally cut my finger on a piece of paper, and a tiny bead of blood welled up. He went pale with anxiety, immediately found a band-aid, carefully bandaged me, and even blew on the wound for a long time. He said my hands were so beautiful, what would happen if they were scarred? It was all fake. The difference between people is greater than the difference between people and dogs. At that moment, my heart died completely. Just as I felt like I was about to be steamed alive, and my consciousness was about to fade completely, Caleb's phone suddenly rang, inappropriately. The ringtone was sharp and piercing. He glanced at the caller ID. It was the restaurant manager. He answered impatiently, putting it on speaker. What is it? Can't you see I'm busy? The manager's anxious voice came from the phone, filled with a touch of incredulous elation. Mr. Caleb, huge news. Caleb snapped, spit it out. The manager's voice was trembling with excitement. A mysterious gentleman not only paid back 10 times the amount of yesterday's customers' losses, but also, he invested $50 million into our restaurant. The manager paused, swallowed, and continued. He said he wants to upgrade the entire restaurant according to Ms. Arya's preferences, and the money's already been wired. The expression on Caleb's face froze instantly. 50 million. The number exploded in Caleb's brain like a thunderclap. He hung up the phone, standing there dumbfounded, his face alternating between green and white. He stared at me, his eyes filled with suspicion, jealousy, and a kind of betrayed madness. Tell me, who is it? He rushed to the glass door in a few steps, banging on it violently. Who gave you the money? He roared at me. Arya, you've gotten bold, haven't you? Finding another sugar daddy behind my back? Sugar daddy? Looking at his flustered and careless appearance, I felt nothing but ridicule and disgust. Leaning against the wall, barely supporting myself, I sneered and forced out a few words. Caleb, a person like you, dares to talk about betrayal? Those words completely ignited the last bit of fire in his heart. He looked like a completely enraged beast, his face contorted, his eyes bloodshot. Good, you're being stubborn, huh? He bulged his cheeks, a sinister smile spreading across his face, a smile that made my back crawl. I'll see if your bones are harder, or your life is harder. He looked around, his gaze landing on the spare bottle of mineral water in the corner near the door, the assurance he'd provided for me to not die. Also my only hope at this moment. Looking at his gaze, my heart sank. He indeed walked over and picked up the bottle of water. He unscrewed the cap and, in front of my eyes, slowly poured the clear water onto the floor. The water spread across the floor like a desperate snake. He threw the empty bottle on the ground, making a piercing sound. Today, I'll let you taste what real heatstroke is, what dehydration is. He wants to force out the identity of the investor. He wants to personally extinguish my last sliver of hope for survival. Serena stood by, a perfect blend of fear and concern on her face, tugging at his arm. Brother Caleb, don't do this, someone could really die. Arya is just saying things in anger, don't take it seriously. Caleb patted her hand reassuringly, lowering his voice, but his tone was filled with cruel triumph. Don't worry, I'm just scaring her, letting her know who her master is. The two were putting on a disgusting act in front of me. High temperature, dehydration. My body was quickly reaching its limit. My lips were cracked as if they were burning, my throat was burning painfully, and I couldn't make a sound. My vision began to blur, and Caleb and Serena's figures swayed before my eyes, turning into two twisted devils with fangs. I felt my heart pounding wildly in my chest, or as if it would stop in the next second. I couldn't hold on any longer, and fell heavily to the ground. The scorching wooden planks burned my cheeks, but I couldn't feel the pain anymore. Arya. Seeing that I wasn't moving, Caleb finally sensed something was wrong, and a look of panic appeared on his face for the first time. He began to pound on the glass door, frantically searching himself for the key. Serena, the key, quick, give me the key. Serena also panicked, and hurriedly took out the only set of keys from her pocket and handed them to him. But just as Caleb reached out to take them, her hand accidentally trembled. The cold metal keys drew an arc and fell precisely into the narrow drain in the corner of the wall. With a clang, it was crisp and hopeless. Ah! Serena cried out in fright, immediately collapsing to the ground, as if all her strength had been drained. I'm sorry, Brother Caleb, I didn't mean to, my hand slipped, I really didn't mean to. She cried her heart out, as if she had committed a terrible mistake. Caleb trembled with anger, pointing at her, his lips trembling, but he couldn't utter a word of scolding. He lay down on the ground, reaching out to grab the drain, but the gap was too narrow, and he couldn't reach it at all. He could only pound frantically on the glass door, repeatedly calling my name. Arya, Arya, wake up, don't scare me. His face was full of anxiety, but the words he spoke were still extremely vicious and full of calculation. As long as you tell me who the investor is, I'll immediately find someone to break down the door and save you. Arya, did you hear me? I'm begging you, if you tell me, I'll let you go. He still wouldn't give up, using my last breath as his final blackmail. Serena stood by, crying while holding him tightly. Brother Caleb, don't worry, don't break down the door, the glass will hurt you, let's think of another way. She rationally delayed him, preventing any impulsive behavior that might break down the door. Caleb was reminded by her and stopped his actions. Looking at my motionless form, the panic in his eyes turned into ruthlessness. He took out his phone and aimed it at me again, as if he had found a new bargaining chip. Arya, this is your last chance. His voice was cold, like a viper. Serena, inspired, tugged at his sleeve and suggested in a weeping voice. Brother Caleb, why don't you let Arya apologize? As long as she's willing to apologize to Serena and the children, we'll forgive her, and you'll have an explanation for your friends. Caleb's eyes lit up. Yes, apologize. He shoved the phone camera in front of my face. Now kowtow to me, kowtow to Serena and the two children on video to apologize, and I'll take it as your last bit of sincerity. He wants me to offer up all my dignity at the end of my life, for him and his friends to amuse themselves. I don't know where the strength came from, but I suddenly raised my head. I looked at his twisted face in the camera and, with my last bit of strength, spat a mouthful of bloody saliva at him. Ha! That mouthful of blood was my greatest contempt for him, and my last resistance. Caleb was completely enraged. Good you asked for this. He had Serena point the camera at my miserable state, and send it to even bigger groups. Let everyone see. This is the consequence of betraying me, Caleb. I heard the faint, rising and falling laughter and insults from outside, and my consciousness completely sank into boundless darkness, just as I felt like I was about to die. Bang! A deafening explosion resounded. The sauna's heavy-tempered glass door was violently kicked open from the outside by an irresistible force. Countless shards of glass exploded inwards, scattering everywhere. A figure in a black trench coat stood against the light, tall and straight. His voice was icy cold, every word filled with raging fury. Caleb, you're courting death. That loud bang made the entire room hum. The man who kicked down the door stood against the light. I couldn't see his face clearly, only a tall and resolute outline. Caleb and Serena were stunned on the spot, their expressions frozen. The man strode in, the hem of his black trench coat carrying a sharp wind. He walked straight towards me. As he approached, that familiar face became clearer in my blurry vision. It was Declan. How could he be here? Caleb finally reacted. A hint of panic flashed across his face, and then he roared with bluster. Who the hell are you, daring to barge in here? Declan didn't even look at him, as if he were just a wisp of air. His eyes were only on me. He crouched down, reached out his hand, wanting to touch me, but then hesitated as if afraid of burning me, suspending it in midair. His eyes held a never-before-seen, almost overflowing fear and heartache. It's okay, I'm here. His voice was hoarse, with a barely perceptible tremor. Just then, several people in white coats quickly followed him in, carrying professional medical kits. They moved quickly, professionally and calmly, starting to examine my body, administer 4 fluids, and treat the burns. Caleb was completely dumbfounded by the sight. What are you doing? This is my house. The restaurant manager followed the medical team, trotting all the way, and he was so scared that his face turned pale when he saw the scene before him. He ran to Declan, bowed respectfully, his voice trembling. Mr. Declan, regarding this. Mr. Declan. Caleb's pupils shrank violently. He finally understood that the investor with the 50 million was the man in front of him. The color drained from his face instantly. Serena was even more frightened, collapsing to the ground, unable to say a word. Declan slowly stood up, finally turning his gaze to Caleb. That look, like 2 knives quenched in ice, stabbed straight into Caleb's heart. Caleb. Declan said coldly. Caleb instinctively took a step back. What do you want to do? I'm telling you. This is a matter between my wife and me. You. Declan ignored his ranting and just took out his phone from his pocket and opened a recording. A greasy man's voice came out. Mr. Caleb, don't worry, I've already spoken to those biggest suppliers. As long as you say the word, we can cut off the supply to your wife's restaurant at any time, guaranteeing she won't even get a single vegetable. Caleb's light laughter came from the recording. Well done. When her restaurant can't stay open, and she begs me, then I'll play the savior. The recording was short, but every word was cutting. Caleb's face turned from deathly pale to liver-colored. I lay on the cold stretcher, listening to that recording. My already numb heart was cut open again. I regained a bit of strength and turned to look at Caleb. I asked him, did you painstakingly destroy my hard work just to make me completely dependent on you, so I can never leave you? Caleb opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. Declan took off his trench coat and wrapped me, along with the thin blanket, gently as if handling a rare treasure. He scooped me up in his arms. I could smell the clean, clear scent on him, a stark contrast to my current disheveled state. Before leaving the sauna, Declan stopped and looked at Caleb with eyes like knives. He spoke slowly, his voice not loud, but with a crushing pressure. The game has begun. I hope you can afford to play. I was sent to the best private hospital. After a whole night of rescue, I finally escaped the danger of death, but the extensive burns and dehydration damage made me so weak that I could only lie in bed. Declan stayed by my bedside, never leaving. The first thing I did when I woke up was to grab my phone. I thought I would see Caleb's begging texts, or apology calls. But all I saw was a storm of overwhelming abuse towards me sweeping across the internet. Caleb was frightened by Declan's warning, but he was not willing to be completely ruined. He decided to strike first and ruin my reputation. He posted a long article online overnight, titled "Sorry, I failed to protect my lover and our child." The article was written with tearful emotions. He portrayed himself as a good man in a dilemma, deeply loving his wife and feeling sorry for the person he sponsored. He attached the most haggard photo of me being carried out of the sauna by the medical staff. In the photo, my eyes were closed, my face pale, and I looked like I was on my last breath. He downplayed the child peeing incident, distorting it into children clumsily overturned a bowl of soup. Then, he said that this trivial matter was because my restaurant's hygiene was substandard and had received customer complaints, and in order to shirk responsibility, I deliberately framed 2 innocent children. As for the sauna incident, he completely reversed black and white. He said he just wanted me to calm down and talk to me, but I lost my temper and accidentally locked myself inside, which led to the accident. He also bribed a few new employees of my restaurant to record false testimonies. In the testimonies, I became a vicious boss who was usually harsh and domineering, and often beat and scolded employees. This long article was reposted by countless marketing accounts overnight. Netizens who did not know the truth were completely incited, and began to conduct a crazy online violence against me. The hashtag vicious wife frames toddler hashtag was forcibly pushed to the top of the trending list. The comments section was full of abusive curses. Why doesn't this kind of woman just die, even bullying children? Look how humble her husband is, and she still wants a divorce. She really doesn't know how good she has it. Upstairs, didn't you see the photo? This woman looked so bad when she was rescued. Could she be acting? Of course she's acting, otherwise how could she frame her husband? What can't a poisonous woman like this do? Seeing the public opinion fermenting, Caleb immediately struck while the iron was hot. Serena started a live broadcast. In the live broadcast, she was barefaced, her eyes were red and swollen, holding her sick child, crying to the camera. "Please don't blame Arya, it's all my fault. It's that I didn't educate my child well, that made Arya so angry. Arya is just sharp-tongued but soft-hearted, she didn't mean it, please stop scolding her." Her manipulative words added the most crucial fuel to Caleb's lies. More and more netizens sympathized with her, and more people scolded me. I was so angry I trembled all over, which aggravated the wound on my body, causing me to gasp in pain. Declan held me down, preventing me from sitting up, and took my phone away. His expression, however, was unusually calm. "Don't worry." He slowly peeled an apple, his movements elegant. "Let him jump. The higher he jumps, the harder he'll fall." Caleb saw that the public opinion was completely on his side, and became even more smug. He even started accepting online interviews with the media, portraying himself as a deeply loving victim who was hurt by his wife, but still wouldn't abandon her. On camera, his eyes were slightly red, his voice choked with sobs, his acting comparable to a movie emperor. He moved himself to tears. The public opinion was like a tsunami, about to drown me completely. Declan looked at my pale face, his brows furrowed. "I've already had the complete surveillance footage from the kitchen released." I nodded, a glimmer of hope rising in my heart. As long as everyone saw the truth, saw how those 2 children were laughing as they peed into the pot, everything would turn around. However, the hope lasted for less than half an hour. Declan's face darkened. "The video has been massively taken down." "What?" I looked at him in disbelief. "Caleb hired the most professional PR team." Declan's voice turned cold. My heart sank bit by bit. Our act of releasing evidence was portrayed by the internet trolls as capitalists driving the poor to their deaths. So being rich means you can expose the videos of ordinary people's children at will? How disgusting. That woman doesn't look like a good person at all. Now she wants to ruin the lives of 2 children. Are the poor destined to be bullied? Boycott this black-hearted restaurant. Hatred of the rich and elites was easily stirred up. The real-world difficulties were more painful than the online knives. My restaurant hadn't even officially opened yet, and it was already facing a large-scale boycott due to the smear campaign. Several partners we had originally agreed with began to waver, calling to inquire indirectly. Even extreme netizens doxed my personal information. My phone was flooded with abusive and threatening messages. Declan looked at my worsening complexion, a flash of ruthlessness in his eyes. I can directly bankrupt Caleb's company and make him disappear from this world. His tone was calm, but I knew he had the power to do so. I shook my head and grabbed his hand. No. I looked into his eyes and said, word by word, what I want is not for him to disappear. I want him to be seen by everyone he has deceived. I want to win openly and honestly in front of everyone. Crushing him with capital would only confirm my reputation as abusing power to bully others. I want him disgraced and ruined, burned to ashes by the fire of public opinion that he himself ignited. Declan looked at the determination in my eyes, remained silent for a moment, and finally nodded. Okay, I'll listen to you. Seeing that we were on the defensive, Caleb became even more arrogant. He started another live stream. In the live stream, he looked haggard and helpless, hypocritically appealing to everyone to be rational. I know everyone is feeling sorry for me, feeling sorry for Serena and the children. But please don't cyberbully my wife either. She might just be momentarily confused. I believe she will understand my good intentions someday. Every word he spoke implied his innocence and my malice. His performance earned him the title of Man of the Year. Serena immediately started a live broadcast. In the shot, she was holding the child, who looked listless. She cried, saying that the child was scared sick after seeing the online abuse. In reality, it was just a common seasonal cold. But this photo successfully garnered an overwhelming wave of sympathy, making our situation even worse. Bad news also came from the restaurant. 2 newly hired employees resigned because they were afraid of being cyberbullied. The morale of the entire team became very low. I felt trapped in an invisible net, and the more I struggled, the tighter it became. Caleb felt like he had victory within his grasp. He did something that no one expected. He had his lawyer send me a lawyer's letter. He countersued me for defamation, attempting to use legal means to completely pin the blame on me. Caleb's countersuit was the last straw. It was also the signal for my counterattack. I looked at the cold words on the lawyer's letter and smiled. I turned to Declan and said, I agree to your plan. No more playing by his rules, let's flip the table. Declan's eyes lit up. He had been waiting for me to say this for a long time. Good. He made a phone call, saying only one sentence. Begin. This time, we no longer used any online platforms to publish the so-called evidence. Declan took all the materials, including the unedited hour-long complete video from the sauna, all the evidence of Caleb's commercial crimes, the transfer records and chat screenshots of him hiring internet trolls, and submitted everything directly to the most authoritative official legal media. That evening at 7 o'clock. The official account of the legal media released an in-depth report. The report contained no sensational language, no ambiguous guidance, only clear evidence and professional legal analysis. The complete sauna video was released uncut. How Caleb locked me in, how he colluded with Serena, how he splashed water, how he increased the temperature, how he took away the life-saving water, how he risked my life to force me to answer his questions. Every word he said, every action he took, was crystal clear. There were also recordings of his attempts to buy out the supply channels of my restaurant, chat logs of him giving instructions to the troll leader. Every one of them was solid proof. The official assessment was like a bombshell, instantly reversing the entire public opinion. Those netizens who had previously cursed me the most were dumbfounded. Holy shit, this is murder. I'm disgusted. I actually felt sorry for this animal before. That Serena is no good either. She was fanning the flames the whole time. They're a match made in hell. I feel like my IQ has been ground into the dirt. I'm going to apologize to Ms. Aria. The flames of anger were instantly ignited, but this time, the target of the burning was Caleb. The second thing Declan did was to directly acquire the PR company that Caleb hired. He obtained all the contracts and instructions, and then made them public. The tricked netizens were furious, and they spontaneously began to dox the troll leaders and marketing accounts who were being paid to do the work. A grand and magnificent reckoning of justice in the online world unfolded. The commercial collapse came even faster than the online one. The banks, partners, and the board of directors of Caleb's company took immediate action after seeing the official report. Freezing assets, canceling cooperation, holding an emergency shareholders meeting, and removing him from his position. Caleb's business empire collapsed within 24 hours. The court rejected his defamation suit against me, and that lawyer's letter became a laughingstock. And our legal team, with mountains of ironclad evidence, formally filed multiple criminal lawsuits against him. Intentional assault, commercial espionage, defamation. Each of these alone is enough to put him in jail for life. Serena was terrified after seeing the official media reports. She packed her things overnight, trying to escape back to her hometown with her child from the long-distance bus station. But at the entrance, she was apprehended by the police, who were already waiting there. Caleb's phone was blowing up. He listened to one bad news after another on the phone, watching everything he had built crumble to dust. He finally understood that he had offended someone he couldn't afford to offend. Before Caleb was formally arrested by the police, he found me. He was stopped by Declan's bodyguards at the door of my hospital room, roaring like a mad dog. "Arya, get out here." I told the bodyguards to let him in. He knew he was completely finished, but he didn't want me to have a good time. He wanted to drag me down to hell with him. He rushed to my bedside, his eyes bloodshot, a crazed smile on his face. "You want to divorce me and then live happily ever after with this pretty boy? I'm telling you, no way in hell." He took out a document from his pocket and slammed it on my blanket. It was a copy of a marriage certificate. He pointed to the red paper, declaring his ownership. "We are legally married. I'm not divorcing. No one can separate us." I looked at him coldly, without speaking. He thought I was scared and smiled even more triumphantly. "Arya, don't think you've won." His lawyer followed closely behind, handing over a document. It was a lawsuit application for property division. Caleb pointed to the design blueprints of my new restaurant, to the $50 million that Declan had invested, as reported in the news, shamelessly saying, "All of this is our joint marital property. According to the law, half of it belongs to me. If you don't let me have a good time, don't think you can start your new life smoothly." He had calculated everything perfectly. He wanted to drag me down with a lengthy property division lawsuit, exhaust my energy, ruin my reputation, and kill my new restaurant in the cradle. Declan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Worried that I would be upset by this, he stepped forward, his voice icy. "Caleb, how much money do you want? Name your price." He was prepared to use money to get rid of this rogue directly. I stopped Declan. I just looked at Caleb's extremely greedy face and asked calmly, "Are you sure you want to divide the property?" My calmness made him hesitate for a moment, but greed quickly overcame reason. He roared fiercely, "Of course, this is what I deserve." "Okay." I nodded. "See you in court." On the day of the court hearing, Caleb was wearing a prison uniform, but still looked completely confident of victory. His lawyer made an impassioned speech before the judge, submitting the copy of the marriage certificate, demanding that all assets under my name be immediately frozen for marital property division. The judge looked at my lawyer. My lawyer stood up, did not refute, but submitted another document to the court. "Your Honor, the plaintiff requests that the marriage certificate provided by the plaintiff be verified for authenticity." Caleb's lawyer was stunned and sneered. "This is simply absurd." Caleb also shouted loudly, "Arya, have you gone mad to avoid dividing money with me?" My lawyer ignored them and took out a second document. "This is a marriage status certificate that my client retrieved from the civil affairs system last week, proving that my client is still unmarried." The whole room erupted in an uproar. My lawyer continued to submit the third document. "This is an appraisal report issued by an authoritative appraisal institution on the original marriage certificate held by my client." He paused, his voice resounding throughout the courtroom. "The conclusion of the appraisal is that marriage certificate is a forgery." The truth was revealed. It turned out that when he said we registered our marriage, the Civil Affairs Bureau system had a problem, and we would go again another day. Later, he delayed for various reasons. In the end, the marriage certificate he gave me was just a fake one he had someone make. We were never a legally married couple. His so-called marital common property was a joke from the beginning. Fake. Impossible. This is impossible. When the judge finished reading the appraisal report, Caleb's last hope was completely shattered. He couldn't believe his ears, and he roared and screamed in the courtroom like a madman. In the end, because he lost control of his emotions, he suffered a mental breakdown in court and was sent to a mental hospital for compulsory assessment. The final judgment of the law came quickly. He was sentenced to prison and a mental hospital for the rest of his life for the crimes of forging documents, intentional injury, commercial espionage, and defamation, among other things. And Serena was also sentenced to prison for aiding and abetting and perjury. Her 2 children were taken back to their hometown by their family in the countryside, and were said to be receiving proper care. My injuries gradually healed under Declan's careful care. My restaurant grandly opened amidst much attention. On the opening day, it was packed with guests, and business was booming. It quickly became a legendary restaurant that was impossible to get a reservation at. At the opening ceremony banquet, the restaurant was filled with melodious music. Under the gaze of all our friends and family, Declan held a ring and knelt on one knee in front of me. The style of the ring was a bit peculiar, even a bit childish. It was the wedding ring I dreamed of, drawn on paper with crayons when I was a child. He said he had found the best craftsman in the world to replicate it. "Arya, marry me." Looking at the starlight in his eyes, I burst into tears and nodded heavily. Years later, Caleb was released early from the mental hospital for good behavior. He was already out of touch with society and penniless, and could only work illegally in the dirtiest back alley restaurants in the city. Once, Declan and I happened to drive past that alley. I glanced unintentionally and saw Caleb, covered in greasy hair and tattered clothes, reeking of stench, being cursed at by a fat boss and fighting for a bowl of leftover food. He saw us too. He saw the glamorous me and Declan in the car. His eyes instantly filled with unwillingness and resentment. I withdrew my gaze. Declan took my hand. Without stopping, I smiled at him and turned to walk towards the sunshine ahead. Everything about him could no longer stir up the slightest ripple in my heart. My world had been completely transformed,